And welcome to another episode of QTube. And today we have from Wisconsin, home of the Green Bay Packers, we have hip hop, rap, pop artist TeawhYB. Welcome to
What's up, Kenny? How you doing?
Doing Good. So the reason we're doing this video, for anybody who is watching, you have released a brand new EP, 5-track EP. You have a brand new video out for your current single, Cherry on Top. And you have a lot of music happening, and we want to hear about it, and we want to find out more about you. And let's dive in, and we'll start music. If anybody has ever done any research on you, we'll find out that you've been doing it for a bit. How did you get started?
Oh man, it's a long journey, that's for sure. I think where it originated is I would mimic the New Kids on the Block and the Backstreet Boys, and I would watch MTV and all the videos and stuff. And at a very young age, I would get all dressed up, actually with my sister's like gel shoes and clip-on earrings, and my parents would take pictures of me and obviously use that against me later on. But yeah, I was always drawn to music and dance and different stuff like that. You know, surprise, I'm sure a lot of people watching this will agree with that. And then when I was in middle school, kind of at that age, I started writing poetry to kind of get some of my emotions out, or kind of release from that and put it out in the air. And that turned into songwriting. One of my English teachers was a big supporter of that, so that kind of helped me along. And then I've always been a big fan of hip hop. It's just something I gravitated towards, and learned how to freestyle rap, and started making raps and beats and different stuff like that. And it kind of evolved to where we're at today. But that's kind of how it started.
The EP is fantastic, and it's 5 tracks that tell a story. It's interesting that you said like kind of like New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys and that, because your type of music it is a blend, and you can hear some of those little bit of like throwback elements that come out into it. So it's a really good mishmash of different sounds and different genres, but it is completely your own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to categorize it sometimes, especially if I'm like submitting to blogs or playlists or something like that, because they're looking for hip hop, and it's like, well, it's like fringe hip hop. It's not really hip hop. It's not really pop. It's not really alternative. So sometimes it's hard to find a home. But I love having my own authentic sound that I don't think really sounds a whole lot like what everybody else is doing. Um,
It definitely is. It's unique. I guess saying unique makes it sound like it's quirky or something like that. It's not. It's just that it's unique because it has a very specific blend of different genres and different sounds into it, and it's something that you've kind of created your own. The whole creation of the EP from start to finish. How long was that, and what is the story that you're hoping people will take from the EP?
Yeah, absolutely. So the EP kind of started out with the first song, which is called Controller 2, and I made that probably about a year ago. And really was waiting to figure out what I wanted to do with it, because I knew it was special. It was something that I would show to people, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have to release that! What is going on? What are you doing?" And it's like, well, in good time, in good time. So that song is really old to me, but new to a lot of people. And it really just stemmed off of the fact that I wanted to have a body of work, as opposed to just singles, and kind of like a never-ending thing of just singles and singles and new this, new that, new that. And I wanted to have just a body of work. So I kind of pieced things together, took a collection of songs, and I had about 7 songs that I felt like really told a story of what I wanted to do. I cut 2 songs from that and ended up with what were the 5 tracks. The story that it portrays is really a modern take on the uncertainty and kind of vulgarity of modern dating culture. Something that I experienced when I came out, of just the Tinders and the grinders and the apps and the different stuff, that you never really know where you stand with when you're talking to somebody or seeing somebody. You never know how many other people they are seeing. You might get ghosted from time to time. You might get led on and you're heartbroken, and that's kind of what the project details, is a story of starting off with meeting somebody who kind of shuns you a little bit. They lead you on, they bring you back, you have the drunk hookups, or you kind of lose yourself in them a little bit, and you forget about who you really are, and you almost lose the respect in yourself to be able to try and attain that relationship. But I like to end things on a good note. So the last song, Cherry on Top, is more of the I'm broken free, I'm myself again, I have optimism, I believe in love, I believe in life. And that's really what We Were is about.
Well, and the cherry on top, I guess, worked out for you too, because you are now don't have to worry about the dating scene anymore because you are married.
That's right. Exactly. So
Um, Cherry on Top is the current single, and you just released a video for it.
mhm.
And it's a very at home, in your space kind of video. The folks who are in it, are those your friends?
Yeah, so one of them, yeah, so they're both my friends. One of them is a radio host and a DJ and also a producer. And then the other guy is the one that produced the song itself. And he also kind of connected me with the director of where we shot the video and stuff like that. So
It's
yeah,
a
two
ve-
very good friends.
it's a very relaxed, and it shows that human side. I mean, that, without all the bells and whistles, just the at home, living life, loving your friends, and having a good time. And I think it's a great way to celebrate the EP, is to have a video like that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people that listen to my music, they tell me that they want to know more about me, or they want to see me, kind of my personality. And I think that this video really shines through. We shot it during quarantine, so we couldn't get a bunch of people involved and, do a whole lot of that stuff. But I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. And it's really just a taste of home, where I'm from, is Wisconsin. So
And
absolutely.
yeah, and just I think of, summers with your friends. And that's the feeling that I get from it. It doesn't have to be a large group of people. Maybe it's two, three, four friends that you have, that's your home, whether it's the location or the people. And that's the kind of feeling that I get from it. And of course, a good cocktail goes a long way for a video.
Exactly right. Yeah,
Um,
what I love about the video is it's so authentic. Like all the laughs, all of the smiles, they're all real. They were just kind of captured by the director and the guy that shot the video. So it wasn't fabricated. We really didn't have to do much. We just had a good time, and that's what we ended up with.
So as a hip hop artist, and I could ask you about the loss of stages, and I know that everybody's feeling the same thing this year with COVID, and so many festivals being canceled, and prides being canceled, and those stages. But in the world of all of that, um, what do you adjust? What was the biggest, I guess, adjustment for you with the loss of stages that you had to deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had an outlined plan of all these summer shows and Pride festivals and South by Southwest and different opportunities that were obviously canceled. And everybody's facing that right now. So I'm not special in that regard. But I think what I did is I looked at pushing the EP closer to. So I released it a little earlier than what I had necessarily planned to, but I also had more time to work on it and more time to plan and execute and send out press releases and stuff like that. But right now, it's just a more introspective time. We had a lot of time with ourselves or with our families, or not, maybe not our families, but just the people that we live with. And now everything's virtual. So, meeting people and seeing people is few and far between. But I really just had introspective time and focused on the now, but also the future. And the future is so unpredictable that you just really have to roll with the punches and have the content and the mindset to really just make it through whatever happens.
Being a hip hop artist, and just an artist in general, and from the LGBT community, and anybody who's, you know, seen me talk or knows that I'm out there and trying to make sure that those voices are being heard. On the flip side of things, as an artist, how, and especially in a genre that maybe isn't known for having a lot of LGBT artists, how do you travel the waters there? Has it been, you know, receptive? What are the challenges that you've faced?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a gay individual, I try to fly my flag as much as possible, but I also don't want it to be my only identity. And that's not because I'm ashamed of who I am or anything along those lines, but I don't want to be categorized into that Pride Month box, right? That I think a lot of us face. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And I guess what I try to focus on in my music is be universal and relatable to everybody. So if you're straight, trans, gay, bi, whatever, you still identify with the common themes and the messages. And I tried to keep my language non-binary as well in mostly all of my songs, except for a few, but it's done intentionally. But being kind of categorized in the hip hop genre, I was back to back best hip hop artist in my city for the last 2 years. And although I don't necessarily consider my music to be hip hop, that's kind of where I always get placed. And I'm certainly okay with that. You know, I love hip hop. That's kind of my origin story. But yeah, it can come with the challenges. Being that I'm not super flamboyant, a lot of people might be surprised when I say that I'm gay. Or I know that some people have been turned off by that, or they're reluctant to support my music based off of their religious beliefs or kind of how they were raised or different stuff like that. Or they just don't believe that I have a place in the hip hop community. Though I will say that is very few and far between. I mean, I've received hateful messages and different stuff like that from time to time, but we live, you know, I'm very fortunate that it's 2020 and it's not the 1970s or the 1960s, because people more now than ever, even if we don't necessarily see it on Facebook and stuff, people are more open, and they are more accepting, and they're more empathetic, and they look at LGBTQ community in a different light, and it's not the same that it used to be. So although I feel like it has been a bit of a struggle to kind of blend in with the community, there are so many artists out there that are doing it and doing it well. And what I love about, you know, the Q Review and different platforms like this is we are having a spotlight, and we are getting notice and recognition, not just because we're gay artists, but because we make great music. And I think that's what the focus needs to be.
I think the focus should always be 100% on the music that's being made.
Yeah.
Whether you're, you know, an artist who whittles, an artist who paints, an artist who goes to, you know, a job 9 to 5, you're still an artist.
Yes.
And that's the same thing around sexuality. The hard thing is when you do, and I know that you probably have experienced it as well as I know a lot of other artists have experienced it, when that box does happen, and it's kind of like, all right, June is here, so the Pride stages, and we're looking for artists, but then Pride ends, June ends, we hit July, and then it's kind of like, but wait, we're still here. So it's always really good to make sure that people realize that, you know, it's a 365, just like any artist. You're out there and you're creating in your own space and your own work, and that's the most important thing. And it just so happens that you happen to also have a different home life and different sexuality, and you know, also you have a beard. So, you know, not to generalize it or anything like that, but it's kind of like, you know, the music is what we're talking about, but representation and visibility is the other piece that comes along with it. So
Absolutely.
do you find, and I guess from your hometown, so you're from Eau Claire, right?
I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, but I live in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is where Bon Iver originated, if you know who that is.
Right. And do you find in that music scene, have you been seeing a lot of changes recently? Take the pandemic out of perspective, I guess. Have you been seeing a big shift in music in terms of, I've been noticing in different parts of the world and in different spots in the United States, cross-genre collaboration, where we're starting to see a lot more collaborations. It happened back in the 90s when, and I mean, one of the biggest ones that you could kind of put a finger on would have been when Jay-Z and Linkin Park kind of connected, and it was two, very, very different styles, and people thought that was, so innovative. But I'm seeing a
Yeah.
lot more of it, and I'm wondering, in your area, are you seeing more cross-genre relationships happening?
Yeah, I think so. One thing that I really wanted to do when I kind of came back on the scene as an artist was to make sure that I showed appreciation for all the artists that came before me, but also that are doing it now. And whether that's hip hop, pop, rock, metal, anything. I think that regardless of your music taste, you need to give appreciation for those who are doing it well. And that's one thing that I really wanted to do, is be supportive, and I still am, and create a community within our community to, highlight each other. So anytime one of my musician friends releases music, I want to make sure I share it or listen to it, send my playlist, because I genuinely like it and I genuinely care. I did a collaboration with a band called Nick Anderson and the Skinny Lovers. We did a song called Swim in Trunks, and it was kind of their first time of stepping outside of their rock pop genre, and we did something a little more hip hop pop. And so I think there is a little bit of that. For the most part, a lot of artists are just kind of sticking to their own genre. I know that the hip hop community in Eau Claire has grown quite a bit, and it used to be a very competitive mindset of, well, I'm better than you. I don't, I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to do this and that. And I think that has opened up quite a bit, which I love, because we're stronger in numbers than we are individually. So if we're supporting each other and bringing each other new audiences, we're only going to help ourselves. So I think myself and another artist that I'm really good friends with, that we're working on a collab project, actually, his name is Miles Boulevard. We've been big proprietors of just supporting the up and coming artists and giving love to the people that deserve it.
Awesome. I mean, and speaking of like different artists and that you would collaborate with or whatnot, who were the heroes for you growing up? Who were the standouts that you were listening to that got you cherished when you were young and growing up and into music?
Oh my gosh, the list goes on. I literally listen to everything. I grew up on classic rock because of my dad. I'm a big fan of the 1965 to 1975 era in terms of music. I think it's one of the greatest generations of music that we'll probably ever hear. But growing up, like when I was real young, I was big into like Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and that hip hop community and New Kids on the Block and all those boy bands and different stuff like that. I was big into TRL and MTV, all those music videos. And then it kind of, as I grew older, like Frank Ocean has been a huge influence on me. He's been a big influence on the world just in general, but to me, his music is timeless, and that's probably who I try to draw influence from the most. And there's so many, I can't even, my mind is just going crazy right now because there's so many artists and so many different things. But I will say, like growing up in Green Bay and just in Wisconsin, there wasn't any Wisconsin-based artists that I really idolized or looked up to. And I think that is changing now. I think there are a lot more, it used to be where bands and musicians, they might have grew up in Alabama, but they identified with LA. So it was all like, oh, everybody's from LA, everybody's from New York or Toronto or something like that. And now people are popping up out of Kazakhstan and, all these different places where your location doesn't matter as much. And, we credit that to the internet, but that's one thing that I'm really excited to be a part of, is kind of a representation for not only the LGBTQ community, but just people growing up in my community of, look, you can do this too, and you could be better than me, and you could go further than I can. You know, so, you know, just kind of being somewhat of a role model in that regard of, you know, I hope that people look at my story and say, you know what, this is somebody that we can follow in the path with, and you know, be a representation for where you're from.
I love that too, especially because, you know, as somebody who grew up without heroes, you know, to kind of find myself in, especially, you know,
Hmm.
as a queer man, and I didn't really know what was happening to me anyway. The rock gods were my heroes for sure,
Yeah.
whether it was Pink Floyd or whatever. Um, but now, as you know, I'm older and being an educator and having worked with youth, I see that I see the magic that can happen when youth see themselves in music or just in entertainment, but in sports, whatever, in
Yeah.
those, you know, those larger than life characters. So um, I'm curious, is that something that you kind of see yourself getting more involved in, with whether it's in your community or just in general, in terms of being like, hard to say a spokesperson, but that kind of role model.
Yes, absolutely. Originally, when I got back into music, I wanted to be a platform for going to high schools and middle schools and talking about not necessarily bullying, but personal identity and community and different things like that. So I really wanted to draw on to be like more of a public speaker. And then music kind of took off, and then that took down a side. But I've worked with a couple of the local high schools, and we did a music video called Saturday, and it had kind of like an anti-bullying theme. And I know that a lot of you know, I still kind of communicate with a lot of the students that were involved with that, and that was really special to me because it made more of an impact than just, you know, views on YouTube. It was something that they got to be involved with and got to see the process. I mean, when I was in high school, I wasn't a part of a music video or anything cool like that. And that, you know, they were on the news, and, you know, they got some local shine that way and stuff too. So it's something that I really want to do more, is get students and the youth involved with what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that I think we're in a really interesting time, and again, not just to say about LGBT artists, but one of the reasons is that um, we see more artists now who are representing themselves authentically than we ever have,
Yeah,
rather than having to make a press release or a statement saying that they, you know, that their sexual identity, it was never hidden. So I think that we're in a really interesting time for independent artists and independent queer artists, for the rest of the world to recognize that there isn't some strange, there's a bit of a stereotype sometimes that if it's, you know, a gay artist or a lesbian artist, that it's going to be a certain genre or a certain style of music. And now we're
absolutely.
showing the world that, you know, no, it's hip hop, it's rap, it's country, it's everything that everybody else is doing. But we're not, you know, you're not hiding it. And I think that that's so great for youth to be able to look up to and have heroes and have their playlists filled with a blend of artists, and some of them being, you know, queer, and some of them not being queer, some of them being from all different genres. So I think it's a really great time for that. um it's also, in a real weird way, the more we talk about it, it feels like, you know, maybe, oh, there's a pressure to do all that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's natural for us to want to kind of extend ourselves and be involved.
I totally agree. And honestly, it was one of, I didn't come out until I was a little older and until I graduated high school. And part of the reason was I was scared and ashamed because I was in hip hop. I was like a rapper at the time. And I just thought that, well, if that comes out, then my career is over. Like, nobody's going to respect me. Nobody's going to care. I'm going to be cast aside. I'm going to get bullied and stuff like that. And to some degree, that was true. But now I find being my authentic self, I don't have anything to worry about. I don't have anybody to address. You know, I don't have anything that I need to be scared of, and I think that's really showing in the music itself of just being more authentic and free, to be honest.
No, and I think that
So
I think it's a great way to be, and I think it is very freeing, and I'm really happy that I'm seeing artists like yourself and other artists that are at that point, because I do think that, you know, you live a better life and you live a happier life. Struggle's going to always be there. The so EP has come out.
so
I know, right? We had had a bit of a tangent, but we're going right back to music because you make music. The EP is out, and not to put cart before horse or anything like that, but I'm interested because I know the EP took a little bit of time. Was it? How long was it? About a year?
yeah, it was about a year.
So, and now that it's out, will you be looking towards new music, or are you going to let this sit for a bit? No pressure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, the project took a year, but there was plenty of things that I was doing in between time and releasing music and different things like that. It was just a matter of timing and doing it in the right way, as far as the rollout of that. But yeah, I definitely haven't taken a break. I've done about 15 features since March. So my plan was to just, you know, work with other artists while I was working on this project and getting that out, because I don't want to release another song right away and then this one kind of disappears. So my plan is to kind of stretch it out a little bit and make sure that people actually listen to the whole 16 minutes of it, because I think it's important to hear a project in its entirety. But I love the fact that it's almost 5 singles, you know, put onto to a project, and you know, you might be feeling one mood a different day and skip to it another day. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a collab EP with my good friend Miles Boulevard, which I was talking about. So we're working on that currently. I've done a couple solo songs in the meantime as well that I plan on releasing in a few months. So I'm not really going to put a stop to anything just because I released this and I want to stretch it out a little bit. I really want to get new content out there. I don't like sitting on songs for very long, because then you almost lose the energy of it, of when you create it, and when you get the final version back, you're like, oh my gosh, the world needs to hear this, I cannot wait. And that excitement, people feel that excitement. So if you lose that, you know, after having the song for about a year, you know, it can be disappointing, because then you're getting all these compliments on the song and then you're like, yeah, no, it's good. But it's because you've had it for, you know, however long. But yeah, I don't plan on stopping really anytime soon. I think it's important to get new music out there and discover new fams and new people to connect with your message.
And I do know that, you know, and it kind of goes with the style of music in a way, but you do have, like, you do merch. There's the other side of things too, where you create that kind of stuff. And I'm curious, because of that style of music and because of your own personal style, just kind of like taking notice of it, if that's another angle, is that another arena that you see yourself kind of like moving into, is creating lines that go along with the music in terms of just apparel and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what I want to do first is grow more of a fan base and a foundation. You know, my merch has sold well, relatively speaking, for the kind of fan base that I have and stuff like that. But I do have a passion for clothes. A lot of my friends make gear and different stuff like that. So I'm wearing, you know, I'm constantly wearing clothes from things that I'm either gifted or friends or associates that I want to support, because I think that's a big important thing. And instead of buying you know, a Nike shirt for $60 or whatever, I can get something that somebody I know made, and I can represent that and support them on a more, you know, local basis. And it's more impactful that way too. But yeah, I have designed stuff, and I designed the current merch that I have, but I really want to expand on that. I'm just kind of looking for the right means to get it produced in a cost-effective manner while not losing the quality.
Yeah, and I always find, you know, the pop and hip hop kind of world and fashion always go so well together, and there's always such a creativity that comes out of the styling of things. And just from even the hat that you're wearing, I was kind of like, the moment that I saw it, I was kind of like, what is Club 920? Because I really like the design of it, and I thought that it was really cool. So it's always interesting, and I think that, you know, it's natural, I think, for us to think in terms of music, full kind of circle and full well-rounded brand as an artist. There's, you know, creativity is not just in the music, it does extend to various different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, you know, me as a white person, I owe so much to Black culture for the influence that it has brought upon my music and my style and everything. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't go unnoticed, because think about how hip hop and Black culture has been infused into pop culture, and you know, from the commercials to the music, the jingles, I mean literally everything is infused, and we owe so much to the creators and the innovators of Black culture that have brought that onto you know, what we consider our daily lives now.
I 100% agree with you. And I think that, you know, it takes conversations like this to make sure that we always bring that back around, and we keep reminding people of that. The world likes to forget at times where things have come from. So I think it is a responsibility on us to kind of be out there and being spokespersons and making sure that we're doing that. So yeah, that's kudos to you for that too. What's next? What is next in the world? And it's kind of interesting because I mean, TeawhYB, I never did ask you, but I'm going to 100% assume that it comes from your name, which is
Yes,
Tyler Baumgarten. So I'm assuming that's where the TeawhYB comes from.
that is correct. So growing up, my nickname for my friends was always TY. Everybody called me TY. And then when I started freestyling and stuff, I went by TY, but there was so many TYs out there, so I added the B and I changed the spelling. And what it's an acronym for Through Every Action, Who Has Your Back, and that's what the acronym stands for. And not only is it who has your back when you're doing well, and you know, when you're thriving and surviving and different stuff like that, but it's who has your back when you really need it the most, in terms of when you're wrong, who's going to tell you you're wrong, or they're just going to go with the status quo and agree with you. So I think that people really have your back when they keep it real with you, and when they try to make you into your best self, even though it's hard to hear sometimes. And that's something that I really identify with. And, you know, so that's kind of the story behind it. But
Dude, that's awesome. Had I known that, I was like, oh, because it's Tyler. I would have totally led with that. I was like, what a great, like, that is, I mean, you need to put that on your merch. That definitely has to.
I did at one point.
Did
Yes.
you?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic. I think that is such, and that's such like a mantra, and you know, something to stand behind. And how you just phrased it in terms of like, not just when the you know, the going is great, but also when the going is tough, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
who has your back, who's standing beside you. And I think that is a really great, just, yeah. I was going with Tyler, and you just basically pulled the wool right over my head and kind
Well,
of went,
but
no,
you're not wrong about
it's
it.
much more deep than that.
But you weren't wrong. I mean, it's kind of a combination of things. So you definitely weren't wrong in that.
Yours is better. Um, what? Yeah. Going back to before, what is next for you? I know that you've been working on things with the pandemic, and with being still locked in, and the United States being in a different place than some of us are. How are, like, what's next for you? Like, how are you kind of like mapping things out?
Yeah. It's so uncertain. It's so unpredictable right now that I feel like I can really only control what I can control, and that's creating content, creating music, supporting others, and continuing to just grow the fan base. You know, I think with sometimes we have these really great ideas and projects and songs, and we release it and we're like, okay, this is going to be it for me. And it's never going to be enough. It's something that consistency will continue to build. And when you look at popular artists, some of them make it overnight, and some have been doing it for 20 years, and they have a one-hit wonder, and they're like, well, yeah, we've been doing this for 30 years, so 20, 15 years. So I think it's just a continual thing. I don't want to take the foot, I don't want to hit the brakes. I want to keep my foot on the gas and keep going, and continuing to reach new audiences and do different things like this, meet new people, get different insight. And that's really what I love about music. Is I've met so many amazing people that I learn from and I admire. And doing conversations like this, I get to learn about you, you get to learn about me. And if not for music, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's really just a lifestyle, and it's something that I love and I enjoy. And music videos and songs you can expect from me. I hope to get back and performing. I'm going to be doing some live performances that I record and post, and kind of get a little more intimate feel of the songs themselves, as opposed to the studio recorded versions. I hope to be back. I hope to be going to South by Southwest next year. I think we're in the time where a lot of music venues are facing closing or staying open. So there's a lot of uncertainty on their part as well. So it's really just controlling what I can control to be able to, put my best foot forward and be ready when that next opportunity arises.
Well, I'm gonna be watching and gonna be, following along and all of that. And it's exciting to know that there's more music coming. Whether or not, and one day back on the stage, it'll happen. It's gonna happen. I just hope that in the meantime, I do hope that people take stock in the fact that live music and just independent artists are not something to be ignored and not something to ever be taken for granted for. They're the foundation of music, and music is so important out there. So even though the stages are maybe closed right now for the most part, they will reopen, or they'll reopen in various different ways. So I hope people stick with that.
Absolutely. Totally
Listen,
agree.
this has been fantastic. I, first of all, love the album. And I think you knew that from the first time that I ever kind of mentioned you, when I got really excited with Controller 2. And I'm just excited to kind of see what comes next, and just kind of watch the journey. I think that, you have a really great story, and I think a trajectory in front of you that I think is going to be just really electric.
Well, thank you so much. We got a remix to Cherry on Top coming out, a video for Sharpie, and I have new music that I could release right now, but we're gonna wait on it a little bit. So
we're gonna make that EP stretch. We're gonna make sure that it gets out to lots of ears.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'm going to return you to your life that I ripped you from. It is very beautiful where you're at right now. It is quite dreary where I'm at right now, but you have a beautiful sunny day, and I don't want to take up too much more of it, so I'm going to return you to your life.
Thank you so much, Kenny. I love you.
I love you too. And if you're watching, the EP is called, what's the EP called?
The EP is called What We Were. And it's not only what we were before the pandemic, it's what we were when we were growing up and we were so uncertain of social norms and not sure of who we loved, and we weren't sure how to fit in. But we look at what we were in a past tense, and we see ourselves in a better future.
Which is way better than what I was going to say, which was just the title. That's why I tossed it to you. So if you're watching, make sure that you check out the EP. Make sure you follow TeawhYB. It's TeawhYB on the socials. And stay tuned for a ton more of music that's going to come from the gentleman himself. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Q Review, we love you.